Hello, everyone. Welcome to Restitching the Tapestry, episode 41. 41. I think we're on 41, right? Cheers. It is Pride Month
Happy
and
Pride Month.
happy Pride Month. We want to celebrate this episode by being our usual out and proud selves. And we felt that it would be important to have this type of episode during this time because any conversation, in my opinion, about Pride Month is an important conversation because, in my opinion, a lot of people just don't get enough exposure to such conversations. So hopefully, this episode might be interesting for you. But
I'm looking forward to
regardless,
it.
yeah, we're excited. We're excited. So, but before, of course, before we get started, let's share how we all have been doing. So, Ari, how have you been doing, and what have you been up to?
I got my hair cut.
Doesn't Ari's hair look amazing? Like, I am kind of jealous. Like, I I want that hair. So how have you been? What have you been up to?
I've been keeping up with my art journal. I showed you in the preview. And I have been keeping up with the house. I have been doing my tarot stuff still. I've been creating my own tarot cards now. I'm really excited about that. And I'm getting ready for my own tarot podcast.
I was about to ask you about that actually. Do you want to talk about it for a minute?
So I'm gonna do a podcast on my channel where I bring on guests and I read their cards for them.
And I'm hoping that I will get to be a guest once in a while on this show.
Yes, you will.
Yay, I'm so excited.
Anyway,
Um,
yeah.
well, I think what would be really cool also for this show that you're gonna do, like I think it'd be really cool for everybody to see your own creative process as you go and create your own, tarot stuff. Like I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one of the decks I want to make is a chrono deck where I do specific time periods. So I make like January through December, and then the days of the month, and then the seasons of the year, and then like kind of like non-specific time periods. So like making a deck like that. So like if somebody has like a when is this going to happen, I can make a deck to like ask sort of like around what time this is going to happen and kind of give people
Oh.
kind of like pull some cards to like, hey, it's going to happen around this time of the month and like this season of the year and like maybe sometime in the near future.
Yes, I think that's so cool. Oh, by the way, Leo and Arby are here. It's good to see you both. Leo has good news. A SIM card has been replaced with a new one, and there's no more connection issues. Woo! That's good.
Woo!
Yeah, I know those were really getting to you sometimes, and I feel bad for that. I remember the days of horrible connection issues, and they were dreadful.
Anyway, what have you been up to, Donny?
I have been, well, this past week, I went on a mini 2-day vacation with my parents to up north Michigan, which was really nice. I don't get to spend a lot of time with my family doing stuff, so it was really fun. Beyond that, I've been doing a bit of writing, I've been working in my garden, and I just got myself a new journal as well, which is going to be a multi-genre journal where I am going to do scrapbook stuff. I'm going to do regular entries. I might write poems in it, but I'm going to put like, just little things. Like I might even doodle in it. Like I want to doodle. And believe it or not, it was really challenging finding a journal that had blank pages. So I just went with like a sketchbook that was kind of pride looking. So I'll have to show
I'm
you guys next episode or something.
I'm so excited for you to do this.
I am excited too. Oh, and I am just as excited about um the journal that you sent in the mail because Ari and I are going to be like journaling through snail mail, which I'm super excited about. It's going to be really fun.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever been caroling? I can't, I
Carl.
cannot say that I have. So, additionally, before we get started with tonight's topic, um, you might notice a little bit of a facelift on our episode. I'm trying to do a few like different aesthetic things that let me know what you guys think. I made a little background that I think looks kind of cool. If you hate it, just say so and I can change it. I can change them out into many different things. I even put out or put down like a little ticker tape title thing. I just thought it was kind of fancy. So, yay for that.
Yay for fancy.
I know. We're always trying to be fancy. Okay, so before we get started with tonight's topic, I'm going to, of course, read our show's mission statement. So, many witness different atrocities, large or small, that fray the social fabric around us, and much of the time, many may feel powerless and know not how to address such things. This fray has gotten worse with the rise of social media, as we are able to share in this trauma collectively as it goes viral, and all together we experience whatever grief that we might experience on a mass scale. So that begs the question of what can we do to help mend the communities that see these different atrocities? Okay. Our goal with this show is to educate or restitch the tapestry of sorts as we educate ourselves and learn more about these different topics that we want to talk about, and hopefully like we might impart something to all of you as we go through this process. So obviously, much like last year, we did a couple of episodes during Pride Month titled "Putting the Plus in LGBTQ plus." We talked a little bit about the history of Pride, but we also talked about a lot of the different things that are happening inside the LGBTQ plus community. We're going to be also revisiting much of that today, but we're also going to be sharing our own experiences being LGBTQ plus individuals also. So, um, Ari, overall, like as an LGBTQ plus person, this is just like a preliminary question just to get our gears a going, right? What a weird phrase. To get our minds going. Um, when you came out, what was it like for you? Was it a good experience or was it a challenging experience or both?
I was kind of in denial the first when I came out originally. I I was sort of like a weird developing experience. Like I sort of developed when I was non-binary. I sort of developed from like, oh, I'm still kind of she, but like I'm not she, but I am she, but I'm not she. And like I still was going by she pronouns, and still sometimes today, so people will still call me she, and I kind of like let it slide. But like I don't go by she. I like for most people, I definitely insist on they. But like if I get like at the grocery store today, I got misgendered ma'am, and I was just like kind of went like this. It was like kind of a jarring experience because like it's the first time someone's called me ma'am in like a while. So it's just like, like it'll be like every so often. And like I won't use women's restrooms anymore, but like I'll try to use like not gender neutral bathrooms. Like I'll use like single bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
But like if I can, but I still will use the female restrooms if I'm in a bind. But like it's kind of a floating experience. So it's sort of like it's I was in denial originally. Like it was sort of like I came out and I Z non-binary equivalent of Sarah Mam is C Leo.
Mm-hmm.
Uh um but so so uh
So,
I was just sort of like kind of confused for a while, and I was just like, unsure of myself and just like I was just like kind of I just I would just like think these things and like have like a lot of gender dysphoria
Hmm.
about things like that I have these like I have breasts like that breasts give me gender dysphoria and
Hmm.
like so I have a hard time with that. And like I have certain things about my body that I don't like. That's gender dysphoria. Um, I still have that to the for the most part, but
Hmm.
like it was a lot more when I first came out. Uh, because I also had an eating disorder, so I was like going through that as well. So I was all sorts of messed up. But the eating disorder, for the most part, I've managed to get that kind of more under control. So the dysphoria is like a little bit less because I've worked on like self care and self love, and I've talked about it with my therapist and all sorts of things. So the dysphoria has kind of lessened, but um, yeah. When I came out as bisexual, my mom didn't believe me.
Oh,
She
goodness.
she was like, "You told me I asked you if you were bisexual once, and you told me you weren't, so you're not." And I was like, "That doesn't. I mean, it's sexuality is fluid. Like I can change my mind." I mean,
Like, you can just click the
I
undo
was with a
button.
woman
Okay.
once. Like you can still like. I mean, this doesn't I just didn't think I was, and then my feelings never changed, and I just all of a sudden decided I was. I mean, I just
It's
happened to be with men the whole time.
well, it's interesting to think that in a way you had two different layers of coming out in a way, right? The
Yeah,
coming out of bisexual and the coming out of non-binary. So, like, and I think talking about both of them is very significant because there are a lot of people in the LGBTQ plus community, like myself, who does not necessarily fully understand the experiences associated with being non-binary, right? So that, like, being able to share that is so unbelievably important. So, like, when
it's
it
just
comes,
and,
I'll go
and like
ahead.
but it's just like I always knew that I was non-binary because like you just there's certain like traits that I've always had that
Hmm.
like I just associated and like I just always called it something else. I called it being a tomboy, where I had traits that were just like, oh, I'm acting like a boy, or I'm acting masculine, or I have traits that are masculine. And it was just that I was acting outside of gender norms. And it was like, well, I'm just not acting within certain gender norms anymore because I'm acting outside of gender norms. So I'm not actually like I don't actually want to participate inside the gender norms anymore. So why call myself a certain gender? Because I don't really want to participate in gender norms. And I don't really feel that I'm one gender or the other anymore. And like, I don't really belong to a certain gender. And this doesn't really make sense anymore. And so why am I participating in this?
Right, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. Well, like, because, like, now when it came to coming out as non-binary versus coming out as bisexual, like, how was it received by people? Like, like, what was the general response by the people close to you?
um, my mom still thinks I'm a woman. My mom has, she doesn't quite understand. Like, it doesn't, she's of an older generation, so it just doesn't like, it doesn't make sense because, like, sometimes I still dress in women's clothing. And so and I wish I could go more masculine. Like it's parts and like I've tried to dress in men's clothing and she's like, "You're not a man." And I'm like,
Mhm.
"But I'm not a woman." I've tried to tell her I'm not a woman, and she's like, "Yeah, you are." And I'm like, "No,
Mhm.
I'm not." And she's like, it doesn't it's like does not compute, does not
It's
compute,
the
does not compute.
binary
You're
the
like, "You're my
binary
little
is so
girl. You're my
like
little girl."
we're all so conditioned to thrive within that binary that there are just some who can't see outside of that binary, you know? And that's what I mean, and I know that's what's imposing for a lot of um individuals in the LGBTQ plus community.
So it's just like she wants me to be her little girl forever, and it's just like I'm not. And so it's just like, and like I'm very limited about who I tell because it's like I don't, first of all, I worked at a job as a data entry operator and I didn't tell anybody at that job because, first of all, I didn't want to deal with the emotional labor of having people misgender me or treat me different or just get the hard maybe get fired or have problems because I'm labeled the other person who's oh the weird non-binary person. So I was like I'm just not going to say anything about being non-binary. I'm just because I didn't want to make it a thing.
Hmm.
So it's sort of like picking and choosing about who I tell. Like I only tell people who I trust that
Right.
will be able to like that I feel like will be able to like emotionally like care for that information. And so like so it's because it's like I don't want to have to explain my pronouns. I don't want to have to explain everything and like I don't want to have to deal with the emotional labor of like having to like explain being trans to
Hmm.
people and like having to answer all of these questions about being trans. I just don't want to deal I don't want to have to answer all of the questions about like that they have about trans women or trans men or am I what's going on in my pants or any of that.
It has like this snowball effect, doesn't it? Where it just it becomes more and more and more and in a way more invasive because a lot of people in our communities have we have the burden of educating people placed on us because nobody else will do the educating, unfortunately, which puts us in many ways in a non-safe position, you know. So like it's very interesting listening to you describe how you like gauge who you tell because really what you're I mean from my perspective you're also gauging your safety, right? Like you're gauging like am I going to be safe in this situation if I tell this individual or that individual about who I really am. That's really interesting.
And so most people, if they just assume that I'm just sort of like, it is what it is, whatever. I'm just not gonna care. Like
Hmm.
it's just it's just the world. Like I'm I'm not gonna get mad about it. I, I know what I am.
Right. Well, that and the truth is, like, we really should only educate when we feel as though we are able, and we shouldn't have to place ourselves in that position all the time. Because,
Mhm.
I mean, I mean, that could adversely affect our mental health, for example, right? So, and I'm sure we both have been there.
Yeah, but I do wish my family has come out against me doing it, but I wish I could shave my head.
Mhm.
If I if if I could, I would shave my head and be more masculine and be like straight up androgynous.
Mhm.
But uh, as a non-binary person, I don't owe the world androgyny to be non-binary, so
Right.
I can present more feminine if I want to, but it's not necessary. I don't think that I should have to
Mhm.
in order to be non-binary. I think that if I want to wear a dress, I'm wearing a dress today to prove a point.
Mhm.
That if I want to wear a dress as a non-binary person, I should be able to. If I want to wear uh, pants, I can wear pants because
Mhm.
they clothes are not inherently gendered.
Right. And it's that conditioning, like where we are conditioned to conform to that binary. That's what a lot like forces us, to um, gender clothing and other objects.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just interesting. That's an interesting perspective. Like obviously for me, it differs quite a bit. Um, being a gay man who is cisgender. Um, like obviously for me, when I came out, oh, how long ago was it? How long ago was 2007? Uh,
14 years ago.
14 years ago. So I've been out for 14 years, and
That's a long time, Donny.
it does not feel that way. Like it does not feel that way. You were there when all of that was happening, basically. So, well, what I mean, I think I've mentioned this in my channel before. I was outed by a friend who got mad at me on Kaiju Galaxy, my Godzilla site, and they found my family's contact information and told them.
Oh no, that's like
Yeah,
the worst way.
it was really uncomfortable. And then like while I was at college, I had to like have this conversation with my parents over instant messenger and phone about this whole thing. And it just it
A
turned
mess.
in it turned into a mess. And it it suffice it to say, like, it really frayed a lot of relationships at that time. I lost a lot of friendships. I also gained some good friendships too. And then, of course, my relationship with my family was really complicated. But for me, coming out was equally as difficult, if not more, when it came to fitting into the LGBTQ plus community because unfortunately, especially in the mid 2000s when it was very under discussed, like, I mean, there are a lot of communities of gay men that are um, they're very specific about who they want to have in association, with them. So, like, there would be a lot of dynamics where there would be like this othering effect on
Hmm.
myself and other people, and it just became very exhausting. And there were instances where our rite of passage as being people in this community centered on our sexual history or anything like that. And at that point, like I quickly became very scorned about the community, and then I had to educate myself, and then I started learning more about the fact that like this isn't the entire LGBTQ plus community. Like the whole community is very diverse, and the entire community is not a reflection of the actions or things said by this smaller group of people. It's
I
not
feel
to
like
say, oh, go ahead.
that's kind of the way it is with the community as a whole is that like
Mhm.
you have like these microcosms of people who are a certain way and then it's not the whole community. It's just like you get these small cliques of people who are a certain way and they just they just are the way they are and it's just not analogous to the whole.
Right. And Lagiacris, you can bring up whatever you're comfortable with, okay? As long as you're comfortable with it. So, but like obviously in that long span of time, it's improved quite a bit. Um, and it's just interesting thinking back on like not only did I like I was also placed in a lot of those situations where I had to educate people about like what it meant to be a gay man and what it meant to be a part of this community. But I also like I had a lot of educating that I needed on my own as well, because at that time like I didn't understand what, like for example, I didn't understand very well what bisexuality was or asexuality. I had an
Mhm.
understanding of what it meant to be transgender and non-binary because I had a couple of friends back then who were, but it just goes to show you that like the education experience for us in the community is also a multi-layered experience,
Mhm.
and it can be a little intimidating, but I think it's important to reflect on it, and I think that's what pride, I mean, circulating back to pride, I think that's what pride is all about. It's one way where all of us in our community can be brought together, in a way that's meaningful. Okay.
I
And
think
okay.
my
Yeah.
first experience with trans people was, it wasn't necessarily trans people, but it was with drag queens.
Mm-hmm.
I I had gotten involved in the drag community, and this was as a cis straight woman.
Mm-hmm.
So I I was more just like, I felt like, drawn into that community, and I felt very safe around them, that I
Mm-hmm.
there was like something inside me that felt very safe in that community. Like, I don't know what it is, but like I just have always felt drawn into the gay community, and it's like, it's because I always was supposed to be gay, or I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
or that I always was gay and that I just felt safe within the community, um and that I have just, have been part of that group, or that it's just that I've been part of those people. They're
Mm-hmm.
part of that calling. Um, but I I don't know. I I felt very drawn in to drag queens, and I felt they were very interesting. They were very inviting, and I yeah, I I don't know. I It was interesting to me to see why they did it,
Right.
and I felt like I was an ally for a lot of years,
Mm-hmm.
and I felt like something had it started to get me to ask questions about my own life, about who I was.
Right.
But it took a long time. I didn't come out until 2016. Like, when I firmly decided that this was who I was,
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't until 2016. But I had been asking questions for several years before that.
Right. So in a way, like internally, like it was a long time coming. Like you had felt that that was the.
Well, I had had a bisexual experience in a threesome with a woman in 2005. And
Mm-hmm.
I told myself, oh, no, I can't be attracted to women because I just can't. I can't. I just can't. But then I still was like looking at women and like still finding myself like, she's kind of cute. Like,
Mm-hmm.
But like, no, 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 I can't be. No. But like, unless, but no.
Unless.
It was sort of like, it was just sort of like, it just never happens. It
Mhm.
just never, it was just never going to happen for me. Like, I was just always involved with men. Men were involved in my life. I was in these cis hetero normative relationships, and that's how it always was, and that's how it always was going to be. And like, that was the way things were supposed to be.
Right.
And I just never questioned it
Mhm.
until I moved to Seattle. And I was like, oh,
Oh.
I can question this. And it was, I started to like look around me, and like, I was like, I felt safe enough in Seattle where I was like, I can question this,
Mhm.
because Seattle was like a city of like people who felt comfortable in their skin to like do the thing and question themselves and
Mhm.
like ask the hard questions like, are you sure about that?
Well, and living in rural Michigan, I mean, how many opportunities did you have to safely do that? Very few, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's a game changer when you're introduced to an entire area that is
Free and open.
free. And for me, like, I mean, even though college presented its dilemmas, to say the least, like that's for me where it began to all fall into focus, like when I realized that I am in this place that's not my small, very conservative town. I'm in this place where I can actually be who I am without fear of retaliation, or fear of being shamed, so on and so forth. It's not to say that it never happened in college, because I often would have semesters where I would be paired with roommates who would end up being so uncomfortable that I was gay that they would like move to a different room. Or yeah, like it was really weird. Like, and it only happened like a couple of times, but on the bright side, those semesters meant that I had the dorm to myself, which I was okay with. Um, so as horrible as it was, there was a small itty bitty glimmer of a silver lining.
That's when you just move all your extra stuff to the other room and you just live like a king.
Basically, I felt like one 100%. So now when did you start having the opportunity to participate in anything pride related?
um that was in college. I started going to drag shows, and I started going to pride events, and I was first as an ally and then later on as a participant. And but in college, in community college first, and then later at Central, I think I went to a couple pride things, and then
Mhm.
later on uh, I went to some pride stuff.
Same here. CMU was my first kind of like experience with pride, and it was actually also my introduction to performing poetry in a live setting, because we would do like coming out events where we would like share poems and stories about our coming out experiences, and listen um listen to activists speak. And that's when I started really finding a lot of interest in speaking out, because before then, like, I was like a very quiet, reserved and introverted. I still kind of am introverted, of course, but like I was far less likely to speak out about anything LGBTQ plus related. I would just let people say their thing and then let it, go on over. But now, like at that point in time, that's when I started really feeling the significance of like, okay, like if people are going to try to say harmful things, I want to try to counteract with something educational when I'm able to do so. Was it always successful? No, but I think that it armed me with a confidence that I didn't have before, which to me was super important. So
Good.
pride kind of helped me feel a sense of security that there were other people experiencing the same thing that I was experiencing.
Yeah, I was in the Gay Straight Alliance at community college because I joined a bunch of clubs because I was, well, at Central too, I was in a bunch of clubs, but at community college, I joined a bunch of clubs because I was an ambitious go-getter.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them was the Gay Straight Alliance because I just loved it.
I love that. And it's that's good because it's very rare for like community colleges to have the same amount of clubs as that universities have. So it's good that you had that experience. So I'm trying to keep up on the comments too. So Shane is here. It's good to see you. Lagiacra will be back. Leo.
Leo was dressing androgynously, and he said that I would like it, and I thought that was amazing. And
Panromantic gray sexual. Yeah, like it sounds as though that your experience, I mean, it sounds like your coming out experience with your mom went well. I mean, okay is to me a pretty good response versus, what are you doing? Ah. um but so okay. So obviously we have a strong appreciation of pride, the history surrounding pride, the fact that it was like that a trans woman of color um, was the individual who actually got us started on this whole process, right? And we, as a community, I think, are making progress with talking about the entire LGBTQ plus community, not just the most numerous populations in the communities, right? Um, so obviously in the past few years, there's been some momentum, right? But unfortunately, we've noticed that there's been momentum on the negative side of things in the sense that there are people, um, you know, uh, cisgender straight people who are often making statements about, well, why don't we get pride? Why don't we have quote unquote straight pride? I'm sure many of you have heard that.
straight pride,
Yeah, right.
straight pride.
And I know we've mentioned it before. Like it's pretty. Oh my gosh, it's pretty. Mind-boggling. But let's talk a little bit about the flaws of straight pride. Okay, so first and foremost, whenever I hear people speaking about wanting a pride month of their own, like straight people, of course, cisgender people, of course, like it immediately defaults to an envy of like, oh well, we want people to appeal to us on these multiple different levels when in all reality these individuals have always had people appealing to them, like it's always been a thing. But I've also like had a lot of people making the argument for straight pride, suggesting that, well, you're not the only group of people that goes through difficult things. Why shouldn't we get acknowledged for the difficult things that we go through? And to me, that's extremely concerning because it's trying to make trauma and survival into a competition, and it doesn't have to be that way.
Is that
And
seriously one of their talking points? Is the trauma
oh yeah,
related?
I've literally had numerous people say stuff like
Oh
that.
my god.
Yeah. And it's like, of course, at first, whenever I would hear those arguments, I would be taken aback and I really didn't know what to say. But now I'm kind of like, I operate under the philosophy of like, like you like, why do you want to jump on the bandwagon of the trauma and survival that we've experienced just to get the month that you don't think you get? Like, it's very sad to me.
I the reasons I've heard that they say they need it is because why do they think they're so special? Why do they think they get a whole month to celebrate their pride? We don't get a month celebrating our sexuality. We don't get all of that. We should get a straight pride month to celebrate our sexuality. And it's like you get that 365 days a year when you get to go out and hold hands in public. But actually, let me tell you a story. So it was when I first moved to Seattle, and it was just before I got a job. I was walking around on a random Tuesday in Seattle, and I saw two gay men holding hands, and they were just walking. They were just walking. And like nobody was bothering them, nobody was giving them a hard time. They were just a gay couple, two guys on a pleasant walk, holding hands on a random Tuesday. And I thought, I'm in the right city.
Right.
I
It's
because
that safety, that security.
yeah, because it's like just knowing that like yeah that I that that could happen in my city. Yeah, and like just on a random Tuesday. And like it just it was such a warm feeling. It felt so good to see. Like I don't know, it felt good. And it made me feel like that that was like the ordinary. Like I saw it all the time after
And
that.
I think that's an empowering memory to recollect on, because what pride allows is it allows the entire LGBTQ plus community to go to places where they can experience that safety and security, right?
Hmm.
And I think what a lot of people who are trying to, suggest that straight pride is necessary, like, they are ignoring the fact that straight cisgender people live in security and safety every day, because they are able to, like you were mentioning earlier, freely express themselves, hold hands, kiss in public, be together, be who they are, see themselves represented in media.
Yeah, they get that all the time, everywhere,
Right.
all over the planet. They get that all everywhere, and like only large cities where it's like, is it common where you can get that, and like in very small places, and I just it was so I just realized like how unusual like that that it was like where you can't get that in other places, and where in some places they might have been taken out and beaten to death
Hmm.
in some countries for even thinking about doing something like that.
Yeah, for even like the slightest whisper of them doing something, like I just get really frustrated with people who are about straight pride, because to me it suggests that they are envious of the trauma and survival that the LGBTQ plus community experiences, and that's not something that should be enviable. Like, no. Oh my goodness. But like, and I think the way we were just describing it together, like, I think that that is a perfect way to combat people making the statement that straight pride is should be something, is the fact that, like, it's not necessary, because there is universal safety and security for straight cisgender people. on a regular basis,
That's true.
Whereas being in the LGBTQ plus community, we do need those spaces still where we have that safety and security. Maybe there will be a day in the future where we won't need that. And if that is the case, like that would be wonderful, But like obviously social progress takes time. I wish that it would be way faster than it is, but Taylor's here. Hey, so is Rogue Agent Killer Rodan and Shayna.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, friends. It's good to see you. So let's talk a little bit about the commercialization of Pride. I've been getting a lot of questions. Yeah, like I've been getting a lot of questions from people about that lately. Like random messages like, how do you feel about the commercialization of Pride, Donny? And I'm like, it's a complex question to ask. So
How do I like rainbows being shoved down my throat?
right. So like, okay. So I'm gonna pose the question of, is the commercialization of Pride a good thing or a bad thing? Okay. So my answer, by the way, thank you, Taylor. I'm glad you like the new backdrop. um, so my answer to that question is the commercialization to me is a double-edged sword. Like I feel like commercialization can do wonders for representation in the sense that it creates greater awareness of the fact that LGBTQ plus people exist, that we consume, that we, contribute to this economy, right? But at the same time, like it's like we can tell that there are certain organizations or companies or institutions that do it simply because they are trying to capitalize off from exactly trying to capitalize off the specific community. So whenever like I'm assessing the commercialization of the LGBTQ plus community, I look at whether or not the institution or brand or whatever consistently supports the LGBTQ plus community, not conditionally supports the LGBTQ plus community.
Don't eat at Chick-fil-A.
Yes, Chick-fil-A bad.
And don't shop at Hobby Lobby.
Yes, agreed. Hobby Lobby bad. Taylor says everything is commercialized these days. Maybe it makes some people somewhere aware. I'll be okay for commercialization if corporations will financially and morally support the LGBTQ plus community 24/7, not just in June. Yes, exactly. What do you think about the commercialization of Pride, Ari?
Salvation Army is transphobic.
Yes. Thank you for mentioning that, Taylor.
So I don't mind the commercialization of it. However, if you're going to buy gear like clothing and other items, there are small businesses that are run and operated by LGBTQ plus folks. Give them your money.
Right.
They are out
Agreed.
there.
Mm-hmm.
Give them your money first because they are more worthy of the money, I think, because
Agreed.
it's keeping the money in the community instead of these mega corporations like Target, who are outsiders who are just out to take your money.
Let's talk about Target.
Can we talk about the suit? Does everybody know? When I mention the suit, does everybody know what I'm talking about?
Explain it for everybody in case they don't know.
So there's a suit that's $40. It's at Target. It's rainbow. It's the lines don't quite match up. It's got a hemline along the side that is like weird. It's $40. It is for the boys. It is a monstrosity of nature. It looks like a unicorn puked on it.
Because it looks so slapped together, you can tell that it was something that they were like,
it was made in China. It was made in China.
Like, we need to quickly throw this together and sell it to our LGBTQ plus
We need to sell it to
clientele.
the LGBTQs, the LGBTs,
Or as some people call us, the letter people or whatever. Oh my gosh.
the alphabet mafia.
Or that's what it's called, the letter people. Like, I can't say anything like entirely horrible about the commercialization of Pride, because I did buy this at one point from Spencer's, I think. Granted, Spencer's has always been supportive of the LGBTQ plus community, but like, this shirt just makes me so happy because it makes a joke about the gay agenda that everybody is terrified of. We brew hurricanes with our flaming hot bodies.
I wouldn't mind if they had like the stuff they had at Target. However, they only represent the the gay and LGBTQ. Like,
Mm-hmm.
have you noticed that there's
Oh yeah.
just rainbow stuff?
Well,
And
yeah, like a lot of the other communities are just left out of marketing for a lot of these different institutions altogether.
you can go on their website and they have three for each of the categories, three items for each of the categories, but they're all the same design, just using the same different flags, but it's
Mm-hmm.
the same design. So it's very lazy.
Right.
It's just you get a t-shirt, you get a flag and a bandana, and that's it for each of the other categories. But if you go in the store, they have everything for the gay community.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, if I'm bye, I bye bye. Bye bye. Go online.
Just the way you described that broke me. Oh my goodness. So Rogue Agent says wouldn't mind seeing a lesbian couple in a Godzilla or Gamera film, but highly doubt it. I could only hope that we would have that representation one day of any aspect of the LGBTQ plus community. That would be delightful in those films, but I also have, apprehension about how widely that would be accepted, considering, well, you all know how I've been received by the Godzilla fandom when I've ever talked about anything LGBTQ plus related. Um, so we should be more mindful. Leo says we should be more mindful about where we get our gear from. Agreed. But we shouldn't shame someone for choosing something they personally find appealing. Of course, yeah, of course. As long as it's not offensive. Yeah. Um, so okay, let's talk about the situation that just happened to me recently that I think warrants some good conversation. Um, and this largely has to do with certain dynamics within the LGBTQ plus community, notably gay men. Okay. So recently, there's been a lot of conversation about the representation of um, the different kink communities at Pride. And I had one of my um, gay friends post the other day a rather scathing comment about the kink communities, suggesting that they are grooming children and that they should not be allowed at Pride or shouldn't have a place at Pride because of that toxicity. And I was like taken aback by that comment because kink communities have always been very much a cornerstone of Pride and sexual expression, sexual identity, so on and so forth. So I like it to me, like this person suggesting that we should gatekeep certain groups of people out of Pride, like that was very alarming for me because it echoed many of the conservative um, arguments that I've seen against the LGBTQ plus community as a whole. Okay. So of course, like I brought that up to this person and they didn't really respond to me, but I was just like, hey, like we don't have the authority to gatekeep people out of pride like that, because especially when those groups are very central to our history and our sustained, collectiveness.
Well, I think it just has to do with the fact that there's like kind of a clashing happening in the last like few decades that a lot of uh you have a lot of people in the LGBTQ plus community getting married and having children now. So there's this family element happening within the LGBTQ plus community. So
Mm,
now there's this family element happening. And so it's clashing with this classic kink um, element that was part of the community originally. So it's like these two elements that were this original element, this facet that was part of the community, is now clashing with this new element, and they are mixing like oil and water. And so
right.
it's like, but think of the children, and it's like, but we were here first, and you can't tell us what to do, and we're not grooming anyone, and we're we've always been part of Pride, and
Well,
it's about
it,
sexual expression. But think of the children.
right, like, I mean, that makes complete sense. And like I understand that. I mean, there are going to be people who aren't comfortable with, certain levels of sexual expression because like everybody has their tastes, so on and so forth. But I don't think like even those people, I mean, we can't like gatekeep certain groups, right? But like here's the thing. I think Pride has been doing a wonderful job making accommodations, creating events that are family friendly specifically, designating them clearly. And like Pride's been doing its best to grow as our community grows, as we can, experience the larger swath of rights that we have. There's still many more that we deserve to have, but like we're still growing as a community very much so.
And I think it's just that you have all of these different people coming together from all these different walks of life, and they're all like trying to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Right.
difficult when you have all of these different people from all these different walks of life coming together and trying to come together and make it work.
Right.
But
Yep.
we're making it work the best we can.
And you know what? Like, obviously, there's always going to be some sort of disagreements or, things to work through. But as long as we work through them as a community, that's what matters, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, and the truth is, because one of my other questions is, how can we make Pride better than it is? I think simply by allowing it to grow with our community, with our communities.
Right. Putting the Q in queer.
Exactly. Acknowledging the plus, because the plus is important. Allowing spaces for the different aspects of the LGBTQ plus community to be represented and to continue having a voice, right? So this is I'm really excited about this question. Who is your favorite historical or well-known figure in the community that is celebrated during Pride Month that inspires you, or that inspires, not expires you? Um, what's yours? Who are yours?
So my favorites that I think about during Pride Month for different reasons. Marsha P. Johnson,
Mhm.
obviously. You cannot think about Pride Month without thinking about Marsha P. Johnson.
Exactly.
Harvey Milk, love Harvey Milk,
Hmm.
and Matthew Shepard.
Yes, 100%. Yep. I think of all three of those individuals as well. Because like all of them, I mean, made sacrifices whether
Hmm.
they were willing or unwilling for the community. And I think that those should be acknowledged and celebrated. That legacy is, I mean, we are their legacy, you
Hmm.
know. So like I also often think about individuals, like contemporary representations of our community as well. I, of course, I'm going to think about Gaga because she's part of our community as well. Um, but like I think acknowledging the many empowering people, like whether they be activists, musicians, actors, writers, so on and so forth. I think acknowledging that they are all out there, that they exist, and that they are doing their part to help make our community a better place, like that's empowering. And that I think helps facilitate that safety and security that we are continuing to work toward.
Yeah.
Mm. So, what is something that you take for granted that LGBTQ plus people of the past didn't have as easy before?
Um, I think that I have the ability to express myself in any way that I want to. That um that I I am that I don't have to be androgynous and I'm still accepted in the community as being non-binary. That there is such a thing as non-binary. That this thing exists and that there's a term for what I am.
Mm-hmm.
I think that this term didn't even really exist 10, 15 years ago.
Right.
Really? Like this is a I mean, I guess it did exist, but like it wasn't widely I mean, did we even know about it really? Like was this
I think it existed. It just was so under discussed. Like it just.
it felt like there was an explosion like 8 years ago.
Mhm. I would say within the last decade for sure.
It just felt
Yeah.
like more and more people started talking about it and then all of a sudden like 5 years ago, yeah, it was just like
Well, like building off from that, like it's visibility. Like for me, like I feel like I take that for granted. Like I mean, don't get me wrong, like we both existed in a time where visibility was more challenging,
mhm.
but we don't have to, I mean, at least where you and I are right now, we don't have to live a double life. We don't have to completely sequester a significant portion of ourselves from entire groups of people that we know, right? I mean, granted that, I mean, a lot of people still experience this, and I think that we have a privilege with how far we've grown, but I also feel like there is at least some greater amount of security and safety than there used to be, depending on where a person lives, you know. Now, our final question for tonight: what is still a challenge even today? I think the acknowledgement that everybody has a diverse history, every individual, right? Depending on where they live. And I think a lot of the time, a lot of people in the LGBTQ plus community sometimes forget that there are certain places, even in our country, where individuals may not have the same degree of visibility that we do,
Mhm.
or the same um, security and safety that we do. And of course, we could also extend that out and think about it on an international level too. It's definitely much more apparent on an international level.
And
So,
everybody's coming out story is different and
mhm,
everybody everybody comes out differently
exactly.
and it's either really accepted and everybody's fine or It's not accepted. Uh, my nephew just sort of came out as bisexual to my parents, and
Mhm.
my mom was like pretty okay with it, but he's kind of got a boy that he's into, kind of,
Aw.
but he is really on the deal about talking about it.
Mhm.
He doesn't really like mentioning it. We think he might just be gay and that he just says that he's bisexual as a way of like, oh yeah, I also like girls.
Right. A lot of gay men go through that, unfortunately.
But so but I think that we're really happy that he's finally talking about it because he had a lot of like up and down about where he was like testing us about whether or not we would still love him no matter what kind
Mhm.
of thing. And his coming out story is a lot different than, say, like mine, because my mom was like kind of in denial that I came out. And so
Right.
she's been kind of like trying to coax him to be like, you can tell me I'll love you no matter what.
Or maybe your mom learned that from
From me, yeah,
from you. Yeah.
that you need to be more accepting.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's my biggest hope is that she just be more accepting.
Well, and I'm glad that this individual has you as a family member too, because like in time, I have full confidence that they will view you as being a safe person to go to, you know.
I literally looked at my nephew the other day and I said, I'm happy and bisexual, and that's all there is to it.
I love it. At the end of the day, that's what pride is all about too. Just acknowledging each other, acknowledging who we are, celebrating our diversity, celebrating our history, and acknowledging that we are all growing together and that we've all survived together and will continue doing so. So, Ari, my friend, do you have any parting words for the evening?
I love you.
And I love you all as well. Happy Pride, everyone. And
Happy Pride.
thank you all for tuning in and listening to us and participating in the conversation. Um, you all have a good night and be safe out there, okay?
Bye.
Bye.